Hello and welcome. I'm Bailey, and this is Sweetheart Esoteric, a great place for sweethearts to find guidance, support, and spiritual knowledge that's going to help them along their own unique path. So come on in. We're going to be reading a full moon themed tarot reading today. It's going to be on February 1st, which happens to be my birthday. So let's just dive right in. I've been reading tarot for over 10 years, professionally for about 8. So I'm starting this channel because I think it's important to have unique perspectives and voices channeling this type of information and wisdom, and I don't know, I just think it'll be a lot of fun. Let's start with our full moon tarot reading. It's going to be geared towards luck and love. For me, I think February is kind of like the month of love, self-love, romantic love, friendship love, all of it, so let's just get started. I have a few cards, a few decks that I'm going to use today. One is the classic Waite-Smith deck. Another is honestly one of my favorites, and I use it in all of my readings for the most part. It's Myss Archetype cards. I love. If you don't know the archetypes, I'll kind of explain more as we get into it. I'm also going to pull a card from the Angelic Lightwork deck by Alana, Fairchild, also amazing, one of my favorites. And my absolute favorite oracle, maybe second after the Archetype deck, is the Kali Oracle. Also Alana Fairchild, incredible. Her writing is so amazing. So it's my favorite because I just feel like it really sums things up. So let's see what I pulled. Okay. All right. Whoa. All right. So this is all about finding clarity. There's something that you've been really, in some way that you've really been like protecting your heart. And that could be, from being vulnerable. That could be, I think a lot of it comes down to is vulnerability. The fear of being vulnerable and the fear of what comes from that. So, in love, that can be, a deeper intimacy that can be created through that vulnerability that you're missing out on. Even if it's scary, even if there's stuff that feels like, it could maybe even be relationship challenging, relationship ending, whatever it is, it's a call to step deeper into that intimacy through that vulnerability, because it either deepens or it's not supportive and it falls away. And you have to go through those challenges. You have to, cut through to be able to get to the other side of whatever that is. So for one person, I'm feeling like it could be having a hard conversation with an authority figure, whether that's family, whether that's bosses, whatever it is. For another person, it's being fully honest with their partner about something they need or want. And this isn't like a shallow type of need. This is something that feels like, oh, this is what I need to be supported and aligned in this way. And sometimes it comes out messy, and I think that's what is scary for a lot of people, to be fully vulnerable. And another thing, let's see, it can be very scary because it can be very transformative, and we don't know what's on the other side of things. We don't know like where this is going to take us, and there is sometimes going to have to be an ending, but the ending isn't always like all that we kind of like are afraid it might be. Sometimes the ending can be an ending of a certain dynamic that's at play, whether that's like us not standing in our power fully, or whether it's like us being, too passive in our life. That's like the same thing, but that's the card that I pulled right after. This card is about, rest and taking a step back. Sometimes we can be, we can take too much of a step back, or because we've grown comfortable in our passivity, we decide that that's where the relationship or the structure, whether it's like work, if you're thinking about work, or love, or whatever it may be, we're comfortable in this passive state. Things kind of have like their equilibrium or balance, and we're afraid to like throw that off. You know, it's like, oh, I don't want it to get worse. I could do worse, whether that's a relationship, work, whatever. It could be worse. So I don't want to like teeter the scales too much, but that stops us from like fully stepping into that power and allowing for that truth of our heart to like really, you know, take us to the next level. And of course it's scary. Of course it can create rifts or fractures or endings of some type that have helped us feel comfortable and safe and, you know, this version of ourselves. But when it's time, we know it's time, and we hold ourselves back, we keep doing it, that's when we, you know, can spiral a little bit farther down into that, you know, that self-doubt and sabotage. And it's almost like a self-betrayal, you know what I mean? Okay. And another card that I'm going to pull is the Hermit. We're in the middle of winter, at least on this side of the globe. I'm in Canada. The Hermit, I always feel like I want to say spiritual winter. We're here in the winter. It's a time for introspection. It's a time for going inward. There's not a lot of momentum. Yeah, we might be in our rest and rejuvenation stage, but we also need to know when to step up and take action. We're moving towards the year of the horse. These final layers are shedding, and this final kind of like test of what's no longer serving you has to stay in the past, whether that's a version of yourself, an outdated mode of communication, a job, a relationship, whatever it is. It's a final kind of testing period. This full moon is about release and letting go, but oh my gosh, I'm just realizing I'm right next to my little lion poster. It's the Leo lion. It's the Leo full moon. It's about moving forward like this character here and really taking charge, you know, and it might not be in this grand way for you. It really depends, you know, like what your chart says, where your Leo placement is, or your fixed sign placements are, your fire sign placements. But even in the small ways, you know, taking that impassioned, empowered step forward and being like, okay, yes, even small changes, it's time. But in the inner deep kind of way is kind of how it's starting to come up with the Hermit. You know, it might be stirring beneath the surface, and all of a sudden you're a lion in a cage and you're like, I need to do this. Like, I've had enough. I have to move forward. What's going to happen? Let the cards fall where they may. That's the vibe. To really harness this energy. That doesn't mean you don't use your discernment. That doesn't mean that you don't first find, you know, some level of clarity. But listen to your heart, tune into your heart, and know that like what's meant for you is on the other side of this release. And that's huge. What's for you is on the other side of this purge, which is kind of where we're at right now. The full moon, letting go, moving forward. Whatever's meant for you will be there in the end. And don't get discouraged. There's still time. Okay? Just, you know what it is. Let it go. The idea of yourself first, and then have the hard conversation, or, you know, sit down and do the thing you've been meaning to, whatever it is. If you need to start small, make the vision board, write it out, paint it out, use your creativity, use your fire, and just breathe and take the step forward confidently. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you know. Okay? It's happening. Let me pull an archetype card. What is challenge? So the archetypes, I'm sure, you know, on some level you've heard about this. Everything has like a light and a shadow. So this is the light expression and the shadow expression, made popular by Carl Jung. the philosopher that speaks in metaphor and symbolism and about synchronicity, about the subconscious mind. So archetypes exist, oh my gosh, exist in, I love this, the collective unconscious as well as your own personal unconscious and your conscious. It's like this balance, okay? So I always kind of describe it in the most simple terms as like TV tropes and characters. So like, you know, there's the hero and the heroine. Those are archetypes. So within us, we have the hero and the heroine, and they have their light expression and their shadow expression. And you'll see kind of as we move forward. So we will, you know, we'll gain some insight through understanding how the archetypes are playing out in our life. For example, today, I want to pull this one, but I also want to pull this one. Wow. Okay. So the visionary. Exactly. Okay. So capacity to envision what is not conceivable to others. Willingness to proclaim a vision without regard for personal gain. So proclaiming your inner truth without knowing exactly what the outcome is going to be. And yes, it might be like, okay, like I, you know, want to advocate for a higher salary, like there is a personal gain, but the visionary archetype in general is speaking from the truth of the greater vision for yourself in your life and for the betterment of every, you know, of all in general, if that makes sense. It's not about this, what we're talking about today specifically isn't just about like being rewarded for like something like, oh, like status or power or money. It's more about the truth that aligns you with like your own sacred fulfillment, your own passion, your own true desires, and moving forward in those ways that feel good. The shadow attributes can be selling insights to the highest bidder, compromising your vision to make it more acceptable, compromising your vision, compromising your voice to make it more acceptable. So if you're like, for example, dealing with like a complicated person, or you know, dealing with somebody that you're trying to cater to, you know, if you're trying to be like if you're trying to walk on eggshells a little bit because you're unsure of like how it's going to go, or, you know, you want to kind of like cater your voice to like their response, if that makes sense, like, and making yourself smaller in that process. That would be like a shadow attribute of this visionary type. And try like getting too ahead of yourself, I think, is part of that. I am for sure guilty of doing this at different points in my life, in all ways at some point or another. But I also know that I have that strong vision. I have the visualization of like where I want to be, what I want to do, but I can compromise that vision to make it more acceptable. Whether it's acceptable within the framework of my own mind, that can be like, oh, like I can't do that. That, how could I, you know what I mean? I can, okay, like, but I could do this, like smaller scale, self-sabotage. Or in a relationship, you know, it's the same thing. Or with work, it's like you might have all these ideas, but you're like, oh, my boss doesn't want to hear them, like they don't care, this, and that. Speaking them and still going through with your vision for your future on the grander scale without getting sidetracked by or trying to make it more acceptable is where you'll get stuck. So overthinking it, right? That takes us into the realm of overthinking, which can be self-sabotage, or putting yourself in a box, you know, compromising your vision. That's not where you want to compromise. You know, sometimes there's compromise, but that's not where you want to compromise, is by speaking your truth, because that's what's going to align you with that grander vision that maybe you can't even fully comprehend or conceptualize yet, but that grander vision aligns with your truth. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, the other one that I pulled is Avenger. So light attribute, desire to balance the scales of justice, righteousness on the behalf of society or oneself. So this archetype can come up for people, you know, who are involved, and this can, you know, very much align with these two together. people who are in, politics or social justice in some way, shape, or form, trying to find that balance within, how to communicate their vision without or like align with their cause without jeopardizing their values, like voting with their dollar, like really standing firm in like the choices of the people, the way that they speak out the world and who they speak it to, right? I feel like this energy of somebody who feels very like trapped in their circumstances, like people around them like don't share in their vision, even though they deep down know what they're looking for and want, like, and what their values are, and they compromise it consistently because it's what's like comfortable. Like they have a certain friend group, or their place of work is like, not aligned anymore. I kind of get this vision of like somebody, like a woman who works with a lot of men who might be quite crude, and it doesn't align. I don't know. I kind of get that vision. I also get this vision of the same type of thing happening in a relationship, or like political mismatch within like a workplace. Yeah, that kind of, that community misalignment, and that comfort zone are coming through super strong. So whoever kind of this is for, that's a big key for you. Just recognizing that like if you're in that type of environment and it doesn't feel aligned, it's because it's not, and that there's a community out there for you, and it takes the courage to step out of it and trust that like you'll fall where you need to, and that what you want kind of wants you. Like there's people out there that want to be surrounded with people like you, and you don't have to jeopardize your voice to exist in this world, or to be safe in this world, or be comfortable. There's more out there for you. The light or the shadow attribute of this is resorting to violence in the name of a cause. So you can see, out there in the world right now, there is plenty of people existing within the shadow attribute of the Avenger. There's a cause. If it gets to the point where there is violence, that's a shadow. Another way would be to cut through your own mental blocks around what's holding you back to find the clarity. That can be a better use of the sword, because it does cut both ways. You don't want to grab it by the blade. Okay, I'm going to pull two more cards. First, we will pull the Angelic Lightwork card. Enhanced protection and beautiful boundaries. I feel like that is so, again, aligned with what we've been talking about. Creating those boundaries, whether, it's in the workplace, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a dynamic where you just don't feel aligned anymore, like you need to speak your truth. Sometimes that comes down to setting new boundaries, creating new boundaries, and just trusting that the boundaries you create are meant to protect you from what's no longer aligned. Okay. I'm going to pull a card from the Kali Oracle as well, just to kind of see how we can sum this all up. Wow. So this is the very first card of the deck. Very powerful, if I remember correctly. Very aligned. She shines her blessing of divine deconstruction, clearing away which undermines your confidence and inhibits your activity on your life path. With the courage born of unconditional trust, you can accept her fierce intervention in your life with openness to positive change that shall emerge from the result. She is fierce. Her presence indicates radical divine intervention, and it may be first experienced as shock or some type of upheaval. Literally. She dwells in the taboo lands of the cremation grounds. Hers is the teaching that divine timing must prevail, and sometimes certain involvements or circumstances must end. We cannot control the workings of destiny, but we can choose how we respond to this essential ending of the chapter in our lives. Exactly. The boundaries, the divine protection, what must end must end. If this message feels aligned for you, trust the process, trust the divine. Trust the divine deconstruction. It's not the ending of everything, even though sometimes it might feel like it. There might be some things to grieve. There might be some things that feel hard to let go of. That doesn't mean it's wrong. If it feels like you're speaking your truth, then you're heading in the right direction. Don't second guess yourself. I feel like a lot of people here might have been conditioned or have learned not to trust themselves, but this is the time to trust yourself and take that leap, have that conversation, give yourself that grace, and just move forward with certainty. Now is the time, my sweet loves, and have a great full moon. Happy February.